What's up everyone, Justin from Makesupply here, and today's video will be an installation in the Exporation series. I am going to attempt to combine the traditional leather working practice of tooling and carving leather with one step swapped out using my laser engraver. I've never done this all the way through, but I've done the first step, a similar first step before, so I think with my hypothesis is that it will all go fine except for the part where I have to do the tooling work because I've never done any tooling before, so that will be interesting. Alright, let's get started. I'll do a quick overview of what I have here and the steps I'll be taking. Okay, let's take a quick little inventory of everything I'll be using, and then we'll start the process. The tooling design I'm going to be using is just this little flower head that I found online. Nothing fancy, no crazy shading or anything, just some outlines of some petals and some small details on the inside. We'll come back to this in a minute once I go over the process. The leather I'm using here is just some 8-ounce Wicked & Craig tooling leather. Small little piece. A little mallet for my tooling work, and some water to wet the leather, marble slab, and picked up some tools from Tandy the other day. There's my sponge, some medium brown 5-ings antique paste, and the tools I have are the swivel knife and 3 stamping tools. So, like I mentioned before, I've never done any tooling before. These are my first tooling tools I've ever bought. I didn't even know what to buy, so I looked online and this is what I came up with. I have a beveler, slightly, I guess, a medium-sized beveler. Then I have a smaller beveler for, I guess, detailed areas, and then this background tool. It's just like a crosshatch, but it's pretty small. I do plan on buying more because I do want to learn some more tooling work, and I know that you need more than this to do anything good. Okay, so let me clear this off and then we'll go through the process. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is the design I'm going to use, and when you're doing tooling work, traditionally your first step is to cut out your design on tracing paper and then put the tracing paper over top of your leather, and using a tool to trace your design onto your leather so then you can carve it out with the knife. I'm going to skip that and use the laser engraver to put the outlines of my design onto the leather. And I think it'll be, obviously the laser engraver is extremely accurate, so all the lines will be drawn on there perfectly as they're seen here, and then it's up to me to do a good enough job tooling it and keeping it accurate. Okay, so before I go any further, I will just go over, for anybody who doesn't understand how the laser engraver works, I will just do a really quick run through. So a laser engraver and a laser cutter has 2 modes. One is the cut, which just goes around a line. Like when I make my templates, here's an example here. I have a design, it just runs around the border of anything that I designate to cut out, and it cuts out the material. The other is engraving. So anytime you see something, an elaborate design that's engraved onto a piece of wood or anything like that, that is another function of the laser. Here, let me show you an example. Here's an example of an engraving where it takes the image and the laser, pretend this is the laser head, it goes back and forth quickly, and just wherever there is that color on the design, it just shoots a pulse of laser and draws the design that way. So that is effective for doing this type of artwork, but it takes a long time. It's a very long process. What I'm going to do here is a combination of cutting and engraving. I'm going to run this file as a cut. However, I'm going to put the settings for the laser to move quicker and with a lot less power. So I'm going to put the power down to like 3%. And what that's going to do is it's going to score a little line for all these lines onto my leather, and that's going to be just like as if I traced it in there with a pen or a tool that marks the leather. And then from there we'll carve it. So let me get started. Okay, I'll say a couple more words before I turn everything on, and then you really can't hear me. Right now you're looking at the leather piece for my tooling. It's strapped down onto my laser bed, keeping it nice and flat for engraving. I'm going to now lower the laser head down to focus it onto the leather, and then I'm going to defocus it a slight amount just to get a little bit thicker of a line. So the laser has a very thin, precise line when cutting, but I want, I want a little bit thicker of a line to replicate how it would be if I was tracing it by hand. So I'm going to focus it, defocus it a little bit, and then I will run the file. Okay, so I finished up tracing my design onto the leather, as you can see here. Worked out pretty well. So at that super low power, it doesn't actually cut into the leather really. It kind of just draws on the surface and chars the surface, which works out because now I have to wet this, and I want to make sure these lines stay here. So I'm going to do that now. So this would be the casing portion of tooling. And as you can see, you can go right over it with the sponge and the lines stay there. All right, so let me find some tape. Just going to tape this down so it doesn't move when I'm working with the swivel knife. Okay, I'm not going to put the whole process of me doing this in the video. Like I mentioned before, I've never done this before, so this is probably going to come out pretty bad, and anyone who's good at tooling can have a good laugh at this process. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace around all these lines that I just cut with my swivel knife. So it does work. I think it's a little too wet because I'm getting a real deep engraving. It's not very clean, but that's my fault because I don't know how to do this. I need to use a much lighter touch. Okay, so I just finished doing that. That was way harder than I thought it was going to be. I have an absolute newfound respect for people who do good tooling work. My hand is completely cramped up right now. Let me untape this here. So this is pretty bad, but you get the idea. So I just went ahead and traced the design. Traced it out. So now I'm going to go ahead and do some of the beveling. Okay, so I just finished up my flower. It looks terrible, but I had a good time doing it, and that's all that matters really. So let me see if I can get this on screen. You can see it, I traced around the lines that were done on the laser with my swivel knife, and then I did some beveling around the outsides, and then I did some backgrounding with the background tool. And yeah, like I said, it doesn't look good, but it served the purpose of the video. I'm going to now put on some of this medium brown antique finish and see what this looks like. Okay, never used this stuff before. All right. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a minute. Alright, so I let that dry for a little bit after wiping the surface as suggested by the antique finish. And I'm happy with it. This is my first time doing a tooling job, and the tooling wasn't really the focus of the video. I wanted to prove a hypothesis that working the laser into this process can be done seamlessly, and you would have no idea that this started off as a laser engraving as opposed to a drawing. And all you have to do for anyone who's using laser engraving, take your design, which is the flower I used here, turn everything into cut lines, and then high speed, low power on the laser just so it etches the design onto the leather. Mine took roughly, to do this size, this is about 4 inches by 4 inches. This took roughly 45 seconds to a minute for the laser to complete the cycle, and then go from there with your tooling in your carving. And like I said, you would have no clue this started as a laser engraving. And that will conclude today's Exploration Series video. If you have any links to some good tooling guides, I'd be interested in checking them out. You could leave them in the comments. I do plan on pursuing this. This was a lot of fun, actually, even though it didn't come out so well. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Thanks.